An atheist woman at a party has a full-blown argument with her sister about how God does not exist. The next day she goes rock climbing, falls 60 foot, has a near-death experience and meets God. Hiya guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sean Hills and this is A Soul's Experience, a channel dedicated to helping the human race remember who we really are. So I've been doing some research this morning and I came across this clip here of an atheist woman who had a near-death experience whilst rock climbing. Now in her near-death experience there was some really profound insights, so we are going to take a deeper look. I've wrote some things down in my old book here that we're going to look at in a moment, but for now just sit back, relax and enjoy this woman's beautiful near-death experience.
I put my foot down on that mossy rock, and that's really one of the last moments I remember was just my foot slipping on the rock and then just letting go. So I fell 60 feet onto big boulders and I broke my ribs, my pelvis, my spinal cord, my arms, my ribs punctured my lungs, so I was suffocating. And I don't fully remember this part, but somehow, I guess it was just fight or flight instincts. I was unconscious for about an hour, and then I woke up and was able to reach my backpack and grab my phone and call 911. And so I called the police, but I was so concussed I didn't know my name or where I was or who I was. But I said, hey, I'm dying, I'm suffocating, I don't know where I am. And then I went, please save me. And then I went back unconscious. And the police were tracing the call, but the signals were bouncing off of the New Jersey cliffs and showing that I was in New York. So they had search teams looking for me in New York, but I was in New Jersey. So I was down there dying for 7 hours. And suffocation was really the reason why I was so close to death. And from there is when my near-death experience occurred. The first thing I remember is separating from my physical body. And so I remember looking at my body and recognizing that I am not that. There's something separate from my physical being. And in that, I learned that I don't die, that there actually is no death. There's something that actually survives death. And some people can call that a soul or a spirit or consciousness. But that was really profound because at the time, all I ever believed in was what I could sense with my 5 senses. But this was proof that there's actually something more than just the physical. And from there, I had what many people call a life review. And so it was in a flash. Where in the state I was, there was almost there was no time. So in a flash, I saw my entire life flash before my eyes. And I grew up with a lot of childhood trauma, and I struggled with addiction. I was really just a sick and wounded human at the time, and a huge atheist. And what I saw in my life review was that I was actually causing more harm to those around me than I was actually relieving the suffering or living in alignment with my soul's purpose. And you know that saying that hurt people hurt people. Well, yeah, so I saw very clearly that my own suffering was then unconsciously being transmitted to all those around me. And that was very eye-opening. I believe that's what we would call karma. I learned about karma and cause and effect and how it determines where we go next, and how deeply it affects the people, not just ourselves and our own soul journey, but also all the people around us. And it was interesting because there was no one judging me as good or bad except for myself, the most objective version of myself. It wasn't judgmental or shameful. It was more like an honest assessment of hey, you're just not living in alignment. And yeah, so that was hard to see, but also really important. And has really created a huge heart expansion in me, deep compassion for the suffering in the world, but also a deep understanding of what our true purpose is here, around how like Earth is actually a school, and karma, or what I learned as these like lessons or these decisions and every action, is here to teach us so that we're living more in alignment with our soul's purpose, eventually to fully embody love. And then came the white light experience. And so I was a huge atheist before my N.D.E. I would go around, quite loudly expressing my belief around how there's no God. So much so, this is probably one of the craziest aspects of my story, is that the night before I fell, I was at a party with my sisters, and I got in a fight with my little sister around how there's no such thing as God, and I made her cry. And then the next morning I go on a hike, and it's not that I believed in God, it's that I experienced what many people would call God. And that was my experience with the white light, which some people would call God, or maybe just ultimate consciousness or the spirit, but it taught me about how it is everything. And it was the most incredible, unspeakable amount of love and peace I have ever experienced. There's like no words to describe that state. And the wisdom that came from being in that energy was tremendous as well. I learned that it makes up everything on the whole planet, that every single cell, every atom in matter is created by this one energy, and that we're actually all just one thing. We are all fully connected. And because we are all one, there actually is no separation and no death. And yeah, so that was really profound as well. So I was down there for 7 hours, and there was a firefighter who was listening in on the phone call, but he was off duty. And he had an intuition, just a gut instinct, that he knew where I was. And so he did the couple-mile hike, and he found me. But what was really cool about this experience is that when I was in the white light, it's hard to discern between, again, there's no separation. So it wasn't like something else or somebody else was telling me I have to come back. Or it wasn't like it was just me, it was both. Like it was a united decision that like, okay, my soul's journey here is not complete, and that my many lives in the past have accumulated to create this karma specifically for this near-death experience in order to wake me up so that I could wake others up. I made the decision and was told at the same time to come back into my body. And I did that quite easily. There was no real resistance to that, actually. The moment that I came back in my body, I took a breath, and in that moment I opened my eyes, and the firefighter's little head popped over the cliff, and he yelled down my name, Erica, at the exact moment that I came back into my body. And from there, we called some army boats that came down the Hudson River and put me on a stretcher and brought me to the hospital. And I was in the hospital for about a month, and inpatient physical rehab for a month, and then bedridden and in a wheelchair for 6 months. And throughout that time, I was undergoing a massive transformation. Going from super traumatized, addicted, atheist human with my wounded body to now this like really deep spiritual awakening. It was a deep transformation, and I had many crazy experiences throughout that time. I started to see energy and feel energy. I became so heart opened. It's almost like I could feel everyone's suffering and pain around me. But I was also more attuned to higher frequencies too. I remember being bedridden in my bedroom, and sometimes all of a sudden my fan would start moving without anybody turning on the light, the electricity, and curtains would start moving back and forth, and it was very obvious. There's no wind, and it was very obvious that there was just beings with me, or energies. I also became really almost electrifying, and I kept breaking technology for a few months after. I went through a couple cell phones and a computer, and anytime that I would put lights on, they would go out. And so that was really interesting too. And I've heard that other people with NDEs have had similar experiences. But ultimately, the most important transformation was the one that led me to service. Like recognizing that ultimately the highest purpose here is service, and that it looks so different for each of us depending on all of our qualities and experiences and personalities, but that service for love is the greatest one, and that's been massive for me. And yeah, today I'm just a healthy human, and the fear of death doesn't overcome me, as it's such a root fear for so many people that, yeah, it's a real gift that I had this experience. And it was interesting because during that 6 months, I had to come to terms with the fact that Erica was going to die, that my personality, this body, will no longer exist, which is really hard to accept because, I have so many attachments to myself and to the people around me. But to accept that there is actually something much deeper that does survive death, and that is ultimately connected to everyone.
So first of all, I want to say thank you to that beautiful soul for sharing her experience, especially seeing as she grew up as an atheist and arguing with her own sister at that party to the point of tears and to the point of anger. God isn't real, God isn't real, she screamed. Little did she know the very next day she was going to have a rock climbing accident that led her to where she is now on a spiritual path. Absolutely beautiful story, and it is very true when people say God works in mysterious ways. So let's just take a look at some things I've written down here. The first thing I wrote down was the judgment part. I thought was really, really interesting. We're brought up in religion to believe that God is a judging God, and we're going to be judged and damned to damnation, down to hell. And that just doesn't sit right with so many people. It's a very fear-based faith, and a fear-based faith is not healthy. It isn't healthy to be afraid of God, especially an all-loving God that wants nothing but good things for you. We can clearly see from her experience that the only judge in her experience was herself, and not in a condemning way. She said it wasn't condemning herself, it was just being honest, just being very practical about it. Okay, I could have done better here, this was great, this is what I need to work on maybe, or this could be better. So it was just an honest opinion, no hiding in the light. And that is something that we can actually do here on earth. We don't all need the hammer blow near-death experience to have that realization that there are parts of us that maybe are out of alignment. And I think that's really, really important as well. The word she used, which I've been teaching on this channel for years now, is not so much good and bad, but alignment and out of alignment with our soul purpose, with our vibration, who we are, who we truly are. Not the labels and the personas that we pick up on the way, but us in our true soul blueprint. Each one of us have a very, very unique vibration that is just ours. And so, yeah, our experiences are completely unique but intertwined, which is beautiful. But yeah, it's just the fact that she judged herself. She wasn't judged by a committee or a council. She wasn't going to be sent to hell or someplace you go if you've been bad. She just could have seen where she could be more in alignment with love, because all of our true nature is love. So that makes complete sense. So yeah, that's something we can do while we're still alive, is do that work. We don't all, we can get the nudges along the way, but we don't all have to have a near-death experience to realise that we've got parts of us that are out of alignment. So that's really, really important. The other thing I picked up on was the fact that she saw it as sort of like a school, and I've heard this so many times, that it's a learning experience. And so there can't be any real judgment, can there? When we first send our kids off to nursery or to school at that young, tender age of 5, 6, 7 years old, or even earlier for some people that start nursery younger, we send them off quite young. And they're not perfect. They're going to fall. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to be noisy, loud. Maybe they're going to be, a bit nasty to another child because they're not in a good mood, and that child might react in a bad way. We're not going to judge these children for, not being perfect straight away, not knowing all their times tables straight away, not being really well behaved straight away and using all their manners. It takes time for children to learn. And so as above, so below. It's like the reason we have multiple lives is because we're learning. And within that life, there are multiple lessons to be learned. So if we don't get it straight away, that's absolutely fine. It takes time. It is a process, an ongoing, eternal process into what she said, in her own words, was to try and embody love fully. And if we look at what Christ said, at what Yeshua said, really his true teachings are all about love. If we take away the manipulation, what has been embedded into his stories, the fear stuff, the control-based stuff, all of that stuff that sounds very man-made and a man-made sort of substance, kind of slotted in for control purposes and manipulation purposes, I believe. That's my belief. If we look at Yeshua's true teachings, or Jesus Christ's true teachings, all of his teachings are about love and about loving thy neighbour and loving yourself and treating those around you the way that you want to be treated. It's all about compassion. And I think that's really, really beautiful. And also something that is achievable. If we look at the works of Christ, the true works of Yeshua, then he is a perfect example. That's what he was trying to teach. When he said you can embody the divine, you can be the divine. What he meant was, you can be that vessel where the love can shine through the same way. Someone can be a vessel for negative action. Someone can be a vessel for what we could call, an evil kind of demonic kind of spirit. But it's not so much the spirit. It's the kind of it's just a lower vibration. It's out of alignment. So we can embody this out of alignment kind of energy that can cause destruction, harm. It can cause more separation and hate on this planet. Or we can embody alignment. And what that means is we're aligning with our true states of being, our higher selves, which are replicas of God. They are little replicas of the ultimate, the Omega and the Alpha, the All. So we can actually embody that spirit, that light of God. Not become gods, because God will always be God. But we can embody God's spirit. And why is that important? Because if we can do that, then we can shine God's light outwards and start to affect those around us and start bringing God's love down here on earth. There are negative energies that want to try and drag down the energy. It wants energy around it to, energy is social, it's magnetic. So there are negative energies that are trying to pull in your spirit daily. And there are some people down here that have chosen through their free will, for their experience, and to help with Earth's school. There are some people that have chosen to fully embody that negative energy. And their actions are completely what we would call loving beings. We would say that is, from the human point of view, horrendous. Their actions can be horrendous. And we won't go into detail. We all know the worst things that happen down here on Earth. Them people that have embodied that kind of pure down negative energy, they're going to be drawing those around them. They're going to be bringing them people down. And we can feel that when we're around someone who we would say was evil. They're just embodied in negative energy. They're really out of alignment. People that are especially in alignment, or just the average Joe, you kind of get the heebie-jeebies, don't you? Let me know in the comments below. When you're around someone who's just, doesn't feel right, you can feel it like a tingling, like a really uneasy feeling in your body, like something's crawling around in your blood, and you just need to get away from that person's energy. Because they're trying to suck. They're trying to suck your positivity. And it's been proven scientifically now that our energy fields go out like 10 foot from our body. So if you're standing 4 foot, or 5 foot, or 6 foot, or even 9 foot, which is quite far, If you're standing 9 foot away from a negative person, you know, you can really feel it. And empaths, and all you empaths out there, you know, you let me know in the comments below as well. Empaths and intuitives can feel that feeling from, as long as they can see it, or as long as they know, you know, there's something coming. It could be 100 foot away. Intuitives and empaths can, whoa, you know, they can pick up that signal from far, far away. And then that can lead into obviously spiritual gifts, like being able to predict events in the future, probable events in the future, but that's a completely different topic. But yeah, we can all feel, so we can embody that loving energy, and then we can, so if we're embodying that loving energy, the same way the negative person affects those around it, we can start to affect those around us. We can bring people up, yeah, because negative energy wants to take, positive energy wants to give. So there's an abundance of positive energy. It never runs out. It can never run out because source is eternal. So we can eternally embody this love eternally. And then when we have lives, or when we awaken inner life, like you beautiful soul experiences are doing, when we awaken inner life, we can start to embody more and more and more of the divine themselves. And we don't lose our individuality in doing this. You know, what we start to do is become more us, because we were made in the image of God. And I believe that they are talking about our spirit body, our pure essence and love and light that is projected from source. And then our bodies are projected from our soul. And our spirit bodies, we come down into the physical body. But we are unique human beings, because just because we are in the physical, we have awareness. And awareness is so, so, so important, because awareness can help us to question, to seek. And that would be absolutely useless if there was nothing to look for. Wouldn't it? I've got all this awareness and all these questions and all this seeking, but there's no point to all of that. Surely there's no point to all of that. But it turns out 100% of course there is a point, and I've written it down here. I thought it was beautiful what she said, that it took her lifetimes of planning, lifetimes of growing and evolving to reach this specific life. Now, lots of us have been talking about this moment in time. She's had lifetimes of spiritual education to get to this moment, to awaken, so she can help to awaken those around her, because we are in the time of the Great Awakening. It isn't something people just talk about. You know, this is a process that has been going on for years and years and years. And the first wave would have been back in the 60s. The first wave of awakened wanderers and awakened soul experiences would have been back in the 60s. And now we're kind of, because we've just left the Piscean age, going into the age of Aquarius, which the golden age starts in 2026. From what I've seen in my visions, it is 2026. The golden age starts after the catalyst of 2025. But after the catalyst, we do go into that golden age, and we are right. So that's why this moment, this year, is really, really important. It's linked to what happened 5 years ago, and this 5-year period from 2020 to 2025 is energetically linked in a 5-year block. We had the first smaller catalyst, and yeah, the smaller catalyst, I know the world getting locked down doesn't sound small, but compared to the catalyst of 2025, it's going to be quite small compared. But it's energetically linked, and then that's the final catalyst to the golden age, to the Great Awakening, the final kind of real start, the real beginning of the Great Awakening, the real of the masses, the awakening of the masses, the Great Awakening of the masses, not just a pocket over here and a person there and a group here and a resort over there, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful when pockets of people awaken, and when you're in that pocket of society, you believe the whole world's awakened with you, but that is just, there are so many people that still need that nudge. They still need that nudge, and there's no way we can fail. So I believe the spirit world has decided that we're having a kind of hammer blow. The humans are, there's no chance we want to get it wrong this time. We're not going to get it wrong, so we're having the big catalyst of 2025 to wake the rest of us up. But yeah, when she said the lifetimes and lifetimes of sort of schooling to get to this moment, it really, really hit home with me, because ever since I was a child, and I had my own near-death experience when I was 6 years old, you know, there was no one in the early 90s to explain to me what had happened. But when technology advanced, and so many hundreds of thousands, if not millions by now, millions of brave souls decided to share their story, I was like, oh my God, wow, there's other people that went through what I went through. Because no one, being 6'7", and, you know, I had an asthma attack and ended up in the clouds, spoke to an angel, saw, I believe was my uncle who passed away when I was a baby, dressed in a suit as a Rockefeller. I've got videos on my near-death experience, actually, if you want to check them out. It's really interesting. Not as detailed as some that I've heard. I've heard some really, really detailed near-death experience. Like, I didn't see Yeshua in my near-death experience. I didn't see God. But I did meet an angel and a relative that had passed, which was really interesting, speaking telepathically and all that jargon. But yeah, so they're absolutely 100% real. And I've known ever since my spiritual experience as a kid, and then going back into meditation as an adult 5 years ago now, and seeing the white light of God and the golden cross of Yeshua, and this spiritual experience that I've had just through meditation, I knew this life, there was something so different about this. This life was special. And it isn't just special for me or for this woman. It's special for all of us. This is the time of awakening. And I promise you, this comes from my heart. This comes from my soul. This comes from the truth. And it's not easy for people that have had spiritual experiences to actually say and share their experiences. It isn't easy, because the majority of the time, those around you aren't going to understand you, and it's going to feel lonely. I have my brother, luckily, who can listen to me, you know, in my physical, close-knit realm. My brother and this beautiful community, obviously, this beautiful community that we all share together. You know, you guys, and I've got one person outside of this community who we can talk and we can share. But if we go out onto the street to the average person and start trying to talk about this stuff, there's a chance they're going to think we're crazy. But the more and more and more now, we can see it even in the mainstream, people are waking up. I'm seeing people having spiritual talks in the strangest of places. I saw a boxer, bare knuckle boxer, the other day in an interview explain how he had an injury, so he had to go away and recover, and he found meditation, and he started talking about how we're all one. And even the commentator was like, wanted to talk about the fight, and the guy starts talking about how we're all one and how we're all consciousness. And I'm watching the boxing like, oh my God, bare knuckle boxers are having spiritual awakenings. Absolutely true. I actually made a video on this as well. Go check it out. I actually made a video on that as well. But yeah, there's spiritual awakenings happening in the most random of places, because we are all spiritual. Every single one of us. You know, we were led to believe a long time ago that you needed to go and sit in the Himalayas for 40 years and become a vegetarian and starve yourself and fast, and you had to do all this, you know, really extreme stuff to find God or to find spirituality. Well, this isn't the case. I promise you, this is not the case. The average person with a bit of practice and a bit of dedication can start to remote view, leave their body, you know, start to astral travel and see things and get messages and get visions and get prophetic dreams and warnings about the future. This can, any single one of us, I promise you, you know. And just like this atheist, this beautiful soul that would have swore blind that God was not real, was having arguments with her own family that God was not real, and would have called me crazy, would have said I was absolutely insane and had no time for anything I had to say on the subject. That person now is on a spiritual journey of evolution. And what's really, really important of the whole story is when she said the highest form of spirituality that we can show down here is to serve, you know, to serve those around us. And that's amazing, because if you really think about how that would work, if every single person on earth served everyone else, then no one would be without. No one would feel lonely. No one would feel not loved. No one would feel not part of a family. No one would feel like they were in a bad neighborhood or lived in a bad country. There would be no such thing as danger. You know, there'd be no harm, because if we all looked after each other like we looked after our children, or we looked after our wives, our husbands, if we all loved everyone like we loved our nearest and dearest, then how could we walk past someone in the street and not go feed them? Or, hey, I've got some space, man. It ain't a lot. It's a bit space on my floor. Come live here. Let's sort you out some housing. You know, how could you have multi-billionaires with multiple properties, multiple planes, loads of land that they never even see, loads of houses they never even stay in, with loads of staff tending to them? Now, how could you have these philanthropists? How could you have these people roaming around in their private jets and everything, and flying over the heads of millions of starving children and starving men and starving women? It just wouldn't exist. If the compassion was really there in every single human being, then, you know, that kind of selfishness, that kind of narcissistic tendency wouldn't exist. And I think that's what embodying love can do. And I think that's the real message for this video that I want to leave with you guys now. If we can just embody a little bit more of that love each day, and that might come at letting someone out at the, you know, at the lights when you normally wouldn't. You know, it might come at, you get angry and you don't tell that person what to do that day. You just bite your tongue and you just let them have their moment. You don't snap back. It might come as, you know, you could slip a little treat into your friend's bag and not tell them about it. So when they look later, they got one of their favourite chocolate bars. You know, just don't say anything, so it's like a total surprise. You know, little tiny things of giving. Love. They don't have to be extravagant. We can't all save the world right now. The way we save the world isn't by going out there and, you know, screaming from the rooftops. You know, because we've been through that period of screaming and force and trying to force our opinion onto others. We've been through that Piscean age of blind faith and control, that I call it. And we're going into the age of Aquarius, which is more about finding our own faith, our own essence of spirituality, finding how we can uniquely help the planet, because it isn't going to look the same for everybody else. How I choose to try and help humanity, making these videos in my spare time and these little things I can do. You know, this is what I feel I can give right now, and try and uplift humanity through the awakening, try and share a bit of knowledge with you guys, and, you know, those that are seeking, try and give you some answers. This is my little way of trying to help. You know, but your way might look different. You know, you might want to write some poetry. You might just want to go out there and smile at people. You know, you might want to just write some little notes and put them through your neighbour's letterbox. You know, you have a great day. Just little things that people don't do, that people think, wow, that's weird, but that's nice. You know what I mean? People aren't used to people being so nice to each other, are they? Wow, that's strange. The neighbours just wrote me a note and said I hope I have a good day. Like, what do they want? You know, we're not used to it, are we? But we're heading that way. We're heading that way if we can embody that love. And then we can start, people around us, it's infectious. It's infectious. It rubs off on people. Yeah, and it's abundant. There is no end to source, the source of unconditional love. So on that note, I want to thank you for being down here with me and all of us at this great time of awakening. It is tough, but it is beautiful. And if there's one thing we like on earth, it's a little bit of beauty. So till next time, please take care of yourselves. And remember that each one of you are unique fingerprints on the finger of the hand of the divine themselves. And none of us could do this without each of us. So please look after those around you, but never forget to look after yourselves. I will see you soon. I love you all, and take care for now.